What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Burning the Red Shirt, episode 80 something. Andrew and myself here. We're 8 days away from college football officially being back, which in Andrew math probably means tomorrow. I think
we're
is how
we're
he
in
would
week
phrase it.
3 already.
Yeah, we're in week 3 already. Let's go right into it. You posed an interesting question in the green room because we're going to act like we have a green room and that we do things like that.
Am I screwing up the
You're
banners?
totally good. I was just winging it, and now you just ruined it. Andrew, why don't you? I'm gonna kick it to you. You posed an interesting question about potential number ones at each spot. Why don't you pose the question and the stipulations? We'll go back and forth talking about who we think those guys could be.
All right, so we're living in an alternate universe, a dream world, a magical place where no one gets hurt, both relative to the players and teams that we focus and hone in on, and as well as all teams that play FBS football. So everyone's fully healthy, plays 12 games or whatever, doesn't get hurt. In this magical world, question becomes: identify across the 4 fantasy skill positions: QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end, the lowest ranked player. I guess you do rankings.
Ranked or just, I think ADP works too, by the way. I think you could just say ADP
lowest
or
player
ranked.
by ADP at each position that you could envision being the number 1 ranked player at that position based on fantasy output at the end of the year, using no less than 2 ifs. So, for instance, like no more than 2 ifs. So something like, I hope my example isn't your player. I don't think it is because you hate this team. Like this one, it wouldn't work if you said if Denzel Boston is as good as we think he is, and if he is the hyper targeted role in the Jetfish offense, and if Will Rogers isn't awful playing against real defenses. That would be 3. That's not acceptable. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with quarterback, and I want you to start. That way, if I am completely off base,
I mean, as you would probably imagine, the way that this likely plays out is I break my own rules instantaneously.
Of course.
But my number 1 probably shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I have John Mateer.
See, I would argue, wouldn't Zevi be the guy? If you want to go real late?
No, because I don't think Zevi can get to number 1 because he's not. I don't think he's likely to do much value with his feet. Whereas, we know Mateer, it's not like if he gets the job is 1, right? that's I'm already using up an if on him on that. He has to win the effing job, but I think that his ability to run is not in question. The offensive system surrounding is not a question. You could argue that is Carlos Hernandez magically healthy? Do we heal him up?
We don't heal him up, no.
Why not? Because he's already hurt.
Unless you want to use an if on him.
But we said as a constant that everyone's healthy.
Well, he's out for the season, isn't he?
He's not out for the season. He'll be back probably in the middle of the year.
Then you have to. The only way we can bring him back to life is if you want to use one of your 2 ifs on him.
No.
And I don't think you want to use an if on Carlos Hernandez.
I think it's fine though. I think that I drink a lot of Wazoo Kool-Aid. I read everything about every article, every blog post, every forum, that every conspiracy theory that's out there. So I firmly believe that they're 4th best outside. Their WR 4th, like the X is like an all-star because that's what every player is incredible according to everything that their beat writers post. So, but I do think that they have enough at the skill positions where there is I don't need to make real assumptions about the quality of surrounding talent that he'll be thrown to. I don't need to make assumptions about his running ability. I don't need to make assumptions about the system. I'm very much like a Cam Ward hater. I don't think he maximized, even though like it's really fun watching him throw the football. It just looks so natural, and it looks like he's got like some baseball background and stuff like that. But I don't think from a fantasy perspective he did a lot to like to show the true output potential from a fantasy perspective of that system. But so I don't think system's a question. I don't think surrounding talent's a question. I don't think running ability is a question. I think that there is less question. I don't think there's a ton of question surrounding his ability to throw either, just based on like going like watching when he got into games last year. I mean, there's not a big sample size at all. But you know how sometimes you like go and watch like a backup quarterback throwing, it's like it looks like he's throwing a shot put. It's like the ball is too big for this guy. That I don't think it's like that. I think that he can do enough in the way of delivering the football to like not let the system down. You read reports also. Apparently, like compared to Zevi, he's got the stronger arm, which surprised me. Like I thought going into this off season, like there were like I just thought for no really good reason, I thought that there were questions surrounding his arm talent, his arm strength, but apparently that's not a question. So the two ifs for him are it feels like win the job and just like execute within the confines of the system. Like don't be an idiot. Don't right like don't fit, which is like a big if, I guess, but
yes and no, right? Like if he wins the job, he probably has already shown the ability to do that.
yeah,
But obviously that's two ifs, but I don't think it's that crazy of a
yeah.
world where
I mean, I'm extremely biased, but I make him like minus 350 to win the job coming out of camp. Like I just don't see, based on everything you read, which is like, I mean, what like there, it's not like we're getting like truly insightful intel a lot of times, but like you, as someone who's read everything, I don't see how the scales tip in a way that Zevi is actually given the job out of camp.
well, we'll soon find out. That's
Yeah,
this weekend. Big D Day for many of us.
very. Yeah, I mean, some of us are 80%.
You know who's 80% is Ben. Ben that I do stuff with on the side.
I'm a tier.
Yeah, he's on. I mean, because we create our projections and you have to pick somebody. So I think everybody is in agreement. I did a poll and I think it's like
Is he
80%
West Coast
here.
Canada?
He's Saskatchewan. Yeah. So he's like,
how far is he from the Palouse?
I have no idea. You're
Yeah,
talking Canada, different language.
right.
So I think the only argument for against John Mateer is like, can you go lower than ADP?
Oh,
Because
did you?
I think I did. I think I had to have. I just think Mateer feels very much that type, right? Like if we all knew he was the quarterback one and there was no doubt that he'd already been named the starter, like we'll see it on Sunday or Monday, right? Like when people are in these drafts, he's gonna go top 15 quarterbacks.
Where do you it's a good question. Where do you think he actually goes? Starting Tuesday.
Let's say starting Tuesday when everybody is likely in the mold. I mean, I would take him over like Fafita, Ewers, Beck. Like I think they have come out and basically said that like whoever wins the job like has the job. I don't think it's like one of those look over your shoulder all season types. You know, if he's bad and he loses the job, he's bad. Like
I don't know. Like the problem, like Zevi's not bad. Like he could totally execute and create a floor for your offense. Like I think he could get the ball out and get it to the receivers. So like if Mateer is just like playing like a crazy person and costing them games, like I could see the switch flip. But
Mateer does feel comparable in a way to Ward though. Ward had a big arm. Now he was bad at deep balls, but he had a big arm. He's mobile-ish. So I could see the similarities. You know, it almost feels like is Zevi better if they want to just kind of dink and dunk and kind of just be accurate and
right. That's the idea.
I think the problem is I don't know if Zevi has shown the decision making to be that dink and dunk guy. I think the upside here is with Mateer and the constant that is like Cam Ward for the last 2 years. So I like it. I think that's a good first one. My quarterback is Jaden Maeva from USC.
Oh, that's
He
fun.
has to be. That's a lower ADP, right? Like that counts as
Yeah,
a
I
lower
mean, he doesn't get drafted.
Right. So, I mean, truly, it's just if he wins the job, because Lincoln Riley has produced stars at the position. Maeva can run. Maeva has big size. He was good as a true. I think he was a true freshman last year at New Mexico.
He was not. It gets quoted all the time that as him being a true freshman, he wasn't.
Okay. So okay. I apologize. Redshirt
It's
freshman,
a
3,000
it's a
yards.
huge pet peeve of mine. Sorry for cutting you off, but I need to get this out. When people screw that up, I screw it up sometimes too. But because the difference is so important, right? The difference between just getting on campus in some cases, in a lot of cases, and balling out versus having an entire year where you got to chill in the background, play 4 games, and then going through everything again. And you're basically a sophomore. Like
Okay.
that is a huge
So you're
difference.
upset. I do agree. So you don't get upset with people that get eligibility wrong. You get upset with people that get freshman eligibility wrong.
I get upset when people throw into the case for a player for the upcoming year that he was a true freshman and did all this good stuff. When in
Which was
reality,
what I was about to do. Which I can take away that argument and still be happy. As a redshirt freshman, he threw for 3,000 yards, ran for almost 303 touchdowns. He's shown to have ability. I think Lincoln Riley can easily untap that. It's truly, can he win the job? If he does that, then he has a solid case at being a late guy that could be number one, like the Byron Brown situation, right? Can he win the job? And then he just has to be good. So it's the
he's
same
not.
type of situation with Mateer as
The
that.
line for Miller Moss is -800
To win the job.
Yeah, it's not happening.
I mean, it's a bigger if than Mateer for sure.
Yeah,
It's
he's
definitely
not winning the
bigger
job
than
out of
Mateer.
camp. It's if a lot of times, like when you're reading, it doesn't even get talked about as a competition. And then every now and then, like an article, like I've seen a lot of cases where it gets talked about just as a given that it's Moss's job, and they're talking about the context of the offense, like with Moss at QB, at least initially, right? Who knows, like what can happen, but
I don't disagree. I think that I have cooled on Moss because I do have worry that he will have the job the whole season. In this instance, I need him to have the job by at least the second half of game one. But
right. Yeah, I agree.
But I do think in terms of, it's probably pretty close in terms of systems. I think, would you rather have a Lincoln Riley or this Washington State system? I think I would lean Riley just because he's only done it for 10 years, right? Like he also, I think you could definitely argue there's more receiver talent.
If we're just talking about systems,
USC.
you can make an argument for Riley's system.
And better talent at USC for receivers, obviously.
Yeah. Schedule though.
Schedule. Although it's not as bad as you'd think. They only play like one cold game and it's Washington.
I know. I just mean the Washington State schedule is like
is definitely easier than
incredible.
That's true. That's true. All right.
Teaser. One of my players that's coming up was a true freshman last year.
No boy, you better get this eligibility right, or I'm coming.
I've checked like 10 times. I hope
we'll see about that.
Yeah.
So I'll go running back, and then we'll kick it back to you. This is one of my guys. I put him in my tweet. Dylan Carson, Air Force, off the cuff. How does that make you feel?
Is this negative PPR?
This is dude has 300 carries, 1,600 yard, 15 touchdown upside.
Okay.
I mean, he is the starter, right?
Yeah.
I think everybody assumes he's the starter. So the only if is if they go from, I don't know how they wouldn't give him a ton of targets. The only if is, do they rotate enough to screw up a number one, or do they not? Because he's going to get 250 plus carries, like almost a guarantee. Do you know the quarterback for Air Force?
Is it Busha?
I think it's John Busha. Does John Busha scream vulturing enough there?
Where did what's his name? Where did Roberts ever get close to RB1?
So that's the problem. I was just going to say Jared would. This is where Jared comes in and says, "Well, hey, 1,600 yards and 15 touchdowns would not put you at number one,
right?
But what if that number is 20 touchdowns?
Yeah, is that enough?
Is it that crazy to think that an Air Force running back, that's the fullback, could run for 20? Okay, so the two ifs here are, and there's two for sure. I'm going to surprise you maybe with the second one. The first one is obviously, do they use him to the levels of Brad Roberts? He ran for 279 and 308 carries in 2021 and 2022. So the first if is, do they take that next step up in volume? Because I think we all can guarantee 200 carries. And then the biggest if, though, is offensive line play. I think they return like literally everybody. So if the offensive line can be good enough, all they have to do is be good for like 1 second. The handoff to a fullback is like 1 yard behind the quarterback. It can't be that hard to block for 1 second, right, Andrew?
They return all the O-line, really?
No, they return like none of the O-line.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, they don't return anybody.
So your hypotheticals of 1,600 yards, 20 touchdowns is 23 fantasy points a game. How does that stack up? Does that like put you in the conversation?
Who was? Let me look at Gene T. Well, who was the number one? Ollie Gordon. Ugh,
yeah.
Good luck with that. Ollie Gordon last year. This is gonna be hard because it's gonna include bowl game probably. I mean, he ended last year with 1,600 yards and 20 touchdowns, but he had 37 receptions, 300 yards and a touchdown. I don't think we see Ollie. I mean, we don't suspect Ollie Gordon's going to do that again, right? Like 21 touchdowns, almost 2,000 yards. Like, so we're assuming half point PPR, right? Isn't that the standard? It's like half point, not full point. So that helps. Don't forget, Brad Roberts did have a 9-yard catch in 2022. So we can't forget that. We need it to be somewhat of a down year, maybe, but I think that 1,620 touchdowns is feasible.
Okay. I don't love my answer. But I didn't have a better one on the short notice.
Okay. The short notice, by the way, that you provided for yourself.
That I gave.
Yeah.
I chose Jalen White. So we don't have to worry about his health. It feels like
which would definitely be the number one cause for concern for Jalen White.
Yeah, it feels like every game where he's healthy, dude gets like 25, 30 touches, does it through the ground. I believe. Am I wrong that he catches passes? I feel like he catches pretty good.
He does enough. I think the last 2 years he's combined for 39 catches.
It could throw a wrench in things if that dude Dallas is like allows them to play how they want to play with their offenses historically the last couple of years. But the big if here that we're using our if on is basically that if the offense skews more run, more gravitates more towards running backs and just running game in general as a result of what the talent actually looks like, and largely like basically speaking to the quarterback room. If White's seeing 25, 30 touches a game, let's do 20, 25, 23, 28, something like that. He's always productive. I don't know. They get multiple backs involved, but they run a ton of plays, right? So I don't know if it's realistic that he's going to get, or even necessary though, that he's going to get every touch for running backs. But I don't know. It's always felt to me that like when he's healthy, they want him to do a lot, and it always seems to answer the bell.
I mean, he's very good, but the problem here is that you literally are taking like the guy that's always hurt. if Jalen Daniels stays healthy, like you took the situation, the guy that is always hurt, and put him in this la-la land. And
you mean I took advantage of my own rules?
It definitely feels like you cheated. I can't see David Dallas turning this into a pass happy offense.
Have you not read his background on his player card on Georgia Southern's website?
He had a surprisingly good like recruiting pedigree. I think he played at like a small private school in Georgia.
How closely do you follow Georgia high school? Were you not familiar with him?
I was not familiar with him. Didn't he went to like a small high school in Georgia.
But you know Hiklinski.
Because he went to my high school. My brother coaches there.
Yeah.
It's a large it's in the largest classification that played for the state championship. A little bit different.
Okay. Yeah, I found it interesting that he's basically spent his first 2 years in college rehabbing shoulder injury, right? So that would give context as to why we've basically never seen or heard of this kid, and also give a good reasoning behind why going into this year, all off season, etc. We kind of assumed it's French or the Indiana kid who can't throw football, Dexter Williams.
That called me out on Twitter.
I think like that gives. What was that?
He called me out on Twitter too.
Which one? Dexter Williams?
Yeah.
Did you make fun of his arm?
Yeah, pretty much.
What did he say? That he could throw?
You're gonna find out, I think he said.
But we know it's not true.
We know it's not true, and we can't find out because he's not going to play.
Right.
It's unfair. Another unfair scenario.
But yeah. So basically, I think that we have good reason and good background for why he would be coming out of nowhere. And like, I believe in his. I don't know. I believe that like we're not just like he wasn't just getting run with the ones because to like mess with the media or like just to give everyone a turn type deal. Like I do buy into the idea that he could actually be their starting quarterback, and like there's any like full range of outcomes is open, I think, in terms of how good he could be. So he could throw a wrench in this though, right? If he's good enough where they could actually run like a pass heavy offense, then there's no way that White gets there. If he's good enough where he can move the football, but still the offense like skews more run heavy relative to recent years, then happy, healthy Jalen White can maybe get there.
So I think you need this. I think for Jalen White to hit this number one spot.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a volume thing as much as you're making it to be. I think, well, first of all, David Dallas, I looked, he went to like the lowest of lowest levels of high school football in Georgia, like private Christian school. So it's
1A is the top. 1's the best number.
Yeah, 1 is the best number. That's correct. I think your best bet is he's good enough to move the offense and he makes them a good offense. But obviously he's not going to be a guy that you can say we're going to go pass heavy, in my opinion. Okay. So I think instead of hoping for 25 to 30 touches and a run heavy offense, I think you want 20 to 25 with a little bit more passing in there, right? Some receptions in an offense that's good. I think that could potentially get him there. I don't think there's any way David Dallas is the type that.
Where in Georgia is school? Is it in the sticks near here?
He went to, it's like, it's down there. I think it's like within 30 minutes of where Georgia Southern is.
True.
Southeast Georgia. It's not. South Georgia has incredible football for like public schools, like along 75, but not when you go east and play private school.
Yeah.
So, do you want to go with your receiver?
Who do I have? Oh, I it's such a bad one. It's way too high. Maybe you should go first so I can come up with a different one. Or do you want to hear it and then I can come up with like a better one?
No. I'll let you just not embarrass yourself.
Okay.
So I went deep in the well for all these, apparently, and you did not. Cop out. I have 2. Dalvin Smith is my reach. Western Kentucky offense has struggled recently compared to years past. But like, what if they get back to it? Like TJ Finley created a good offense that helped with the Texas State offense. Caden Veltkamp had a clear, distinct love of Dalvin Smith in the bowl game. 9 catches, 77 yards, 3 touchdowns. We've seen the receiver 1 for Western Kentucky get heavy volume. I think we all agree Dalvin Smith is that receiver 1. The if is...
Do you? Do we?
What is it going to be, like Mike Matheson, who just sat out a year? Easton Messer?
Okay, fine. I'll give it to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I think and it's probably just one, is like the volume's going to be there if the offense is good. Like if the offense is 2 years ago good compared to last year. Right? Because like Malachi Corley was being drafted in the top 2 rounds years ago. So if the offense goes back to that type of efficiency and productivity, why wouldn't a receiver 1 for that team have the potential for number 1 season? My other option was Juice Wells from Ole Miss. Not as deep, but that's a messier room. But Jackson Dart could throw for 4,000. They're going to score a bunch. He's really good.
What did you say his first name is?
Juice.
No, you're pronouncing it wrong. It's
Antoine.
Judas Wells.
I think if there is like, if he's the receiver, I think you have to be the receiver. Well, obviously you have to be the receiver 1 if you're going to be the number 1, but he's got to beat out Trey Harris to be that top guy. And they have to, the 2 would be, he has to be the number 1, and the run game, if the run game is not all that great, and they lean pass heavy.
I don't really see it, but that's fine.
It was a reach. Which one do you like better, Dalvin or Juice?
Ooh, Juice. I do love Judas as a player. Like, see, watching that one drive he played against Georgia before he was out for the year. After that drive, where do you know what I'm talking about? It was like week 3. Yeah, he basically he just took over and went 80 yards on like 7 plays by himself. And everyone on our defense knew he was getting the ball, and it didn't matter. And I guess he broke his foot or something on the play. He scores a touchdown on. He's out for the year. Like, the guy is just ridiculously talented. And good.
I think you're remembering it wrong, by the way.
He's already hurt. So, but how do you feel about that? Carlos Hernandez. Are you healing him up, but Carlos Hernandez doesn't heal?
There's a difference between wearing a non-contact jersey and like already have had the surgery. Okay. And you're remembering it wrong. He only had 2 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown against Georgia. He didn't go 80 yards, but he did look impressive on the drive, which is
did look cool.
He looked cool is the main part. Tell me your 4th round receiver that you're going to mock and ridicule me for who I pick, but you take Torrey Horton as your guy. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I pivoted away. Mine's still not that cool. I was going to go Deion Burks, but it's too easy. I'll go Malachi Fields. I guess there's 2. One, Tony Elliott isn't a little bitch and like leans into the strengths of his team, aka the passing game. And 2, I don't know, like the idea that this offense funnels through the slot as opposed to maximizing the involvement of their best player is just not true. Right. So the idea that you're going to just throw the ball to Chris Tyree or whoever because he plays the slot, as opposed to just hyper targeting Malachi Fields, who's an absolute monster. Like maybe throw the ball more to Fields because like dude is dominant. He already like sharing the field with Malik Washington, who went for like how many yards? Like 1,400 yards last year. Like Fields still
like 140 targets or something like that.
Yeah,
too.
Fields still approached 1,000 yards and scored a bunch of touchdowns. Like, why should he not get a serious bump this year? Like it's not that, and it's not even that they don't have talent, right? I want Andre Green to be good. I don't really buy into Tyree. They have someone else who's interesting too. I've started to put on in the background in the morning the ACC road trip show that is always playing on the ACC channel as like nice background noise. I'll probably pivot to the state news that is the SEC network in the coming weeks, but for right now, I've been gravitating to ACC road trip, and they were doing Virginia today, and they talked a little bit about the receiver room. So that got me thinking a little more about Fields.
One of those receivers got hurt. trying to think of besides Tyree. I can look it up real quick. I like it. Do you have a? I'm sorry if I missed it. Was there a preference on which quarterback you wanted?
Oh, I mean, well, so it's what, it's tough for me, right?
I mean, Calandria is about as cool as it gets. And
It
I was a
is,
Tech
but
fan.
Musket went to my alma mater, Monmouth.
So I was gonna try to trap you into a situation where you said Calandria, but I actually think, I mean, Musket showed last year that he can support a receiver one. Like I looked at
Yeah.
the 4 main games that he played, and Washington had incredible numbers every time. Like in terms of just volume.
I kind of wish I actually drafted Fields now in leagues. I have like none of him, even though I love the dude.
I don't have any of. It's so funny how much I probably would have benefited from doing underdog drafts first and then doing the Champion Series best ball drafts, because like I never really considered Malachi Fields, and then because underdog was smaller player pool, I've started to have to like actually do research and not just guess based off what I remember from last year.
Right.
And I would have had more Fields too.
You have decent amount of Fields on underdog.
I do, yeah.
I have 0.
Well, when you draft 100% of people,
I'm always drafting a QB or RB in like round 7, which is I feel like is when he goes.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how much I have real quick. Let's see, some of my exposures are. I have 14%, but it's funny. I have like 50% chip in the $10 tournament and like 15% in the $3 tournament.
Right.
I probably approached that the wrong way, but I like that. I actually think that's a really good one. Deion Burks is good, a little obvious and not deep enough, but I think Malachi Fields is probably a very good answer.
Yeah, thanks.
I will go with my tight end was I don't even look this up. Mason Taylor, LSU. Okay. Nussmeier is going to throw for 4. I think he throws for 4,000. The concern would be the receiver group. Everybody is the greatest receiver known to mankind. Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, Xavier Thomas, when healthy, which he is healthy now, Kyron Lacey, and CJ Daniels. How could I forget CJ Daniels? That would be the concern. So the concern would be that, if Nussmeier likes to throw to tight ends, which against Wisconsin, Taylor had 7 catches, 88 yards.
Yep.
I'm not begging for 7 for 88 every game. Give me 5 for 75 and a touchdown, 5 for 60 and a touchdown. That puts him in that territory where I think he can be number 1. This is probably the hardest group because we're assuming health for everybody, which means you have to outproduce Gadsden or Keithy, and that's going to be really tough to do. But I think Mason Taylor, if he gets the touchdown equity, I think the volume is there. I mean, he just needs to, if Nussmeier likes to throw to Taylor in the end zone, is pretty much it.
Fair. Mine is a player who was a true freshman last year. Do you want to fact check or do you want to guess?
No, just tell me.
Ben Brahmer.
Okay.
Went for 28 catches and 300 and change last year. So there's your floor, presumably. We've seen Iowa State tight ends. I guess maybe is the answer? Is it just Charlie Kohler? Is he the only Iowa State tight end who was good historically?
I feel like there was another one too, or maybe Charlie Kohler was there for 10 years.
Yeah, but why can't he get that kind of usage? Obviously, Noel and Higgins are going to command a lot of targets. We're not talking about an air raid or anything like that. So there's only so many targets to go around. Your favorite player to draft on underdog, Daniel Jackson, is with him no longer being around this year. I guess that's another body to be removed from target share. But Nick, CFB Winning Edge's favorite player, Isaiah Alston, is there now. That Army kid. So I guess you got to compete with him too or whatever. But I am in the two things I am diametrically opposed on, producing as a redshirt freshman does nothing for me or whatever. Producing as a true freshman though,
gives you more of a tingle.
That, I think that definitely bumps you up. I'm here for hyping hyping someone when they actually show out as a true freshman, and like willing to project if I did projections, a sizable increase in fantasy production from one year to the next based on that. Like it's very much in your favor. We've seen the offense like produce high quality tight ends in the past. Kid obviously has talent in the receiving game. Like why not? Why not? I don't know. What gets you so like you mentioned, you're going up against Gadsden, a healthy Gadsden in this universe, right? Which basically makes it impossible. But
so let's look at what Gadsden did 2 years ago: 54 for 891 and 6 touchdowns. I don't think that 891 is rep. You can do that again. So
I think he goes for more. Do you draft? I draft him a lot.
I don't draft him. I just don't. It's hard for me to swallow. My teams just look worse when I take Gadsden in the 3rd round.
That's so. One of the reasons for that is probably because, unlike you, I talk myself into every one of my receivers that I'm drafting in the last 5 rounds being a top 10 receiver.
I'm actually 10% Gadsden in the $10, so that surprises me. But
when you do that, though, your teams look amazing.
If you assume that every late receiver you take is going to be the receiver 1 in a 4,000-yard offense, then yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a hard time drafting Gadsden because of it. It's certainly possible, and I don't think he does 891 again. I could see 54 for 750 and 6 touchdowns, which Charlie Kohler, by the way, is like really the only Iowa State tight end in the last like 7-8 years to do anything. But to be fair, he also did it for 3 straight years.
What did he do? Awesome. What was his ceiling?
It was pretty much what I just kind of projected Gadsden to have. I can pull it up real quick. So it was quite impressive.
So this is like, do you draft Brahmer?
I don't draft Brahmer. I've drafted him a couple times, but not a ton. I actually really like this call. Did you know he was
a true freshman?
I did know he was a true freshman, yes. Because Felix at Campus to Canton loves Iowa State. I feel like he's talked about Brahmer, and I remember thinking about him. So Charlie Kohler went 48, 44, and 58 receptions his final 3 years. 675, 591, and 723 yards those 3 years, and then 7, 7, and 5 for touchdowns. So if he did Charlie Kohler years or production, that's a guarantee for top 3.
Okay.
I thought Brahmer was a little banged up too. I thought he missed a game or two. He might have. I thought he missed more than that. Yeah. What about?
He was sharing a lot of like, not necessarily passing work, but snaps. And that room cleared out a little bit, but also I think just naturally you would expect more from a snap share perspective going into year 2.
We missed on maybe the most obvious tight end.
Who?
Keanu Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Who do you think's more likely to hit number 1, Keanu Hill or Seydou Traore from Mississippi State? We both need a redo. The question is, which one is better, Traore or Keanu?
It's really close. I'm kicking. I never draft Traore because I don't want to be in a position where I only have one tight end in the playoffs for week 12, which is like probably not good enough. As a reason, I wish I had drafted him more. Which one of those two? I will say, I don't need to care about health of my quarterbacks, I guess. But it is nice with BYU that they have 2 quarterbacks that I think the passing game doesn't die if, like, either through ineffectiveness or whatever, one of them doesn't work out. Like,
right.
Neither of them are amazing, but both of them I think can like keep the offense not in a death zone type situation. It sucks. Bohannon's gonna win the job. I can't use the Bear Jew gif until Retzlaff takes over.
Yeah, that is. I don't know how Jerry Bohannon did it, but he did it. Isaac Rex went for 34, 422, and 3 touchdowns last year. Keanu Hill did better than that, I think, 2 years ago, but last year he got hurt. Traore went like 56, 50, and like 3 2 years ago before he sat out for the year. Which, by the way, doesn't he get that year back? I think he gets that year back based on the new NCAA rules. If you ever sat because of a double transfer, like I think Brew McCoy has another year too,
Love it.
which I got to slip in.
Yeah.
Here's a good hypothetical. Everybody stays healthy. Travis Hunter plays a lot of offense, if not all offense. Like he's a top 10 drafted receiver on Underdog right now. Is that appropriate, or can he go higher?
You would need to use an if on Pat Shermer not being an idiot and calling a game plan that like does Sean Lewisy things. So that's a big if for me.
It's definitely a big if, but you get the one if.
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah. I mean, Travis is amazing. So,
I know you're a Travis homer, so that's why I felt I could pose that question to you, and you would reach for the stars. I mean, he went 57, 721, and 5. He did have some weird games. The problem is they're just going to use him on defense too much. So even when he's like insanely talented, he went 3 for 73 against Nebraska. Like you just can't really do that if you want to be a number one.
Yeah,
it's just not really possible. But I thought that was pretty good topic. You got anything else for us here?
Did you see? So we have a game time for Hawaii week 0. Did you notice?
11:59.
Yeah, midnight. But it's pay-per-view. Do you have a mechanism? Do you use any of like those sketchy streams ever or no?
For NFL years ago, yes, because I didn't pay for Sunday Ticket, but now I have it, so I don't have to worry about it.
You pay for that?
The Lions are good. I've saved up money on the Lions for 15 years, so the Lions are good. I feel like
Isn't it like how much does that cost?
I have YouTube TV,
yeah,
so I already pay for that. You have to. I think you have to have YouTube TV. That's why I referenced that. I think it was like $250.
So you can max the transfer portal or have Sunday Ticket.
The problem with not doing Sunday Ticket is that if I don't, I pretty much have to watch just the Falcons and just the Cowboys. Like if those are my options. If I don't, then like 80% of the games I watch are those, or I get the rare Chiefs on CBS at 4:00. Like that's what I get if I don't pay for Sunday Ticket.
I just hate the NFL, so I can't relate. I can't sympathize.
You get the Giants and the Jets, so good luck with that. That doesn't sound fun either.
It's awful.
So yeah, where were we going before that Sunday Ticket?
Oh, so I'm moving forward with my general plan of sacrificing week 0 to check a lot of family related boxes. I'll take at least one of my kids to go visit my mom. Probably be back. I'll do that Friday, Saturday, so I'll probably be back for like games. But like, I don't know. I don't try and like do much in the way of like planning and maneuvering to actually be sitting down and watching the games. It's nice that we get the SMU game in like 8:00.
It is a good prime time spot.
Yeah, so I'll probably get demoed and watch that. But I don't know. I'm just thinking about the Hawaii game. So obviously I'm not paying pay-per-view dollars to watch that game. So now we're talking about sketchy streams, which, I mean, am I really going to do that on my work computer or my personal phone? Like
work computer, yes. Yeah, I'm having the same conundrum. So my wife is out of town. Next weekend, week 0.
Yeah.
And originally I was like, oh, I definitely am just going to take her to my parents. Like maybe they watch her overnight. But the problem is my wife works on week 1, which is way more important, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I will be solo. I think I'm just going to hang out with my parents next Saturday for a little bit. The only game that truly matters is really that 12:00 for my baby, because otherwise I can put her down and still watch the SMU game and no issues. Yeah. So I think I'm going to change. I do the same thing as you. I'm going to kind of sacrifice week 0 a little bit, not do the full degen, and then save it for week 1 when my wife works. That's a way more important time slot.
What's your favorite? I mean, I talked about a lot of this in some regard in my top 10 slates article on Brandon Chicken last year. But how do you rate your excitement from like a window or day perspective for week one? Like what does what for you? What does the heavy lifting? Is it like is the Saturday like that's the best, or I don't know? How do you feel?
I would, or it's tough. I would say whatever the biggest. Saturday is all the same to me unless there's like a huge game, because typically like Michigan doesn't play anybody, Virginia Tech doesn't really play anybody that moves the needle. So it really just depends on the actual matchups themselves. But I would say the full Saturday is probably the entirety of what I care about. The Sunday and the Monday game is obviously awesome, and I'm very appreciative
Right.
for it, but it's not the same for me. I think really it's just the longevity of the weekend that is the cool part. It's the Thursday, the Friday, gives me something to do during the workday. That's the Sunday and Monday, though, is definitely takes a back seat to the first 3 days because I need volume. I'm a volume guy. I need a little bit more than a showdown.
Yes. Are you playing DFS this year?
I wasn't going to,
of course,
and then it reels me back in. I won't play as much as I used to. I'm going to try to focus more on props. Because there will be instances like on week 1 Saturday, I'll have to pick up my daughter from my parents, and I won't be able to, like, bedtime is 7:00. So I can't really do the 7:00 unless it's 8:00.
So you're entering the same, you're entering a lot of the same challenges and realities that I've been living in. This is like one of my favorite DFS slates, or my favorite one, I should say, like the 7 p.m. Saturday night DFS slate is a staple. It's great. Kids it's like during my time. The problem is like trying to manage the news, build entries and stuff is like during like either dinner time or getting everyone ready for bedtime type deal. So my line, like I like Money on Fire more often than not because I can't dedicate the time relative to lock or leading up to lock. Like last year was the first year in like many years where I like actually lost money playing DFS because like I don't have process. I never really have had a stringent process, but like what I would basically do is I'd win money throughout the week, throughout Saturday, playing props, and then I would chuck an entry for some percentage of my winnings or whatever into DFS, and it's just like Money on Fire. So which I'm fine with. I'll probably still do it, but I'm gonna give myself a cap of like maybe like $150 or $33 single entry for DFS on a Saturday night.
Yeah, I figured as much. The late night's going to come way more into play this time around than it used to be. But I do think there are some chips I can play to secure some night slates.
Nice.
So I've locked in one Auburn game I'm going to go to for sure because we have tickets.
Who?
We're not going to go to Cal. We're not going to go to Alabama A&M. What do you know the schedule / you want to take a guess at which one I'm going to go to?
Deep South sold his rivalry?
Those are both are on the road, Alabama and Georgia.
Georgia Auburn's nickname is Deep South oldest rivalry.
That's at Athens.
Oh, is it? Okay.
They do both home, both away. Like it's both home this year, both away next year type thing.
I don't know. Tell me.
Oklahoma.
Ooh, that's fun.
Isn't that like a fun, unique matchup? Should be a great game. Like Auburn will be the underdog.
Do you draft Thorne on underdog?
I do a little bit. Yeah.
So I've started to. Just like that, getting the cupcake week 12 is nice. And then also
week 10 as well.
In the back of my mind, it's like, what if Hugh Freeze's offense is just more effective in year 2? Then we have like a playable asset.
I think there's multiple pieces to it. I wrote 1,800 words on this, remember?
Oh, yeah. And I made fun of you.
You did. And I think like 30 people viewed that article, by the way, which is like tremendously low. It's Hugh Freeze year 2. Like Hugh Freeze knows what he's doing. So for the fact that like he didn't actually get a quarterback in the portal, it says something to me. And they bolstered the whole receiving group, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
great group of receivers, relatively speaking, for college. Good tight end, good running back. Like this offense will play better. And now it's just him. Robbie Ashford got in the way. Peyton Thorne was like, relatively speaking, college football pretty good the second half of the season when Ashford wasn't in nonstop. But they definitely played more to like what they thought was their strengths, which was like against Georgia and Bama was like trying to slow the game down, like eliminate mistakes. So like they just didn't really. I don't think you can. There's no such thing as unleashing Peyton Thorne, but like they didn't like open up the playbook because they knew that they just wanted to limit every sort of risk possible and they'd have a shot. I mean, they should have beaten Alabama and Thorne played well, but he was just limited in usage because they knew what they wanted to do.
I feel it's an uncomfortable bet, but I think the process is right. I went under on his season-long rushing yards. Do you know?
Peyton Thorne's?
Yeah.
What could that be, like 500?
475.
I mean, you need them to pass more.
My process was basically like, so when these props came out, I spreadsheeted all of them and I looked at the QB rushing ones, the QBs that they put out rushing props for, and just generally speaking, like all these guys are like ridiculous athletes and ridiculous runners. And then Peyton Thorne is just chilling there amongst them. And it's like, I don't know. I think I could bet against that.
What did he run for last year? Do you know?
I don't
have to know if so you bet it without knowing what he ran for last year.
I looked it up at the time. I just don't. This was months ago.
It's not good. I'll tell you that right now for you. 520.
So that I think that is like generally hard process. The idea of using that last year's numbers to inform this year's from a prop perspective. I rarely do it. I just don't think it's like informational and actionable.
In the instance of Hugh Freeze, though, why would it not be actionable? The second year with Peyton Thorne, like if you look at his usage throughout the season, it was fairly consistent. When he barely played against or barely threw the ball against some of these teams, but he had one game of 123 and a game of negative 34. Besides that, he pretty much was like 40 to 60 yards every single game.
So the path to success and the path to growth for this offense, do you believe that it is him taking a step throwing the ball or him taking a step like
it's definitely throwing the ball. He needs to take a step passing.
Right. So if this offense is successful, I think it's because the offense grows in the passing game. If this offense is not successful, he's losing. He could get replaced, I think. Like, what if he looks like how he looked in the bowl game?
Maybe
when he got replaced.
That feels a little bit of a reach, though.
What outcomes am I missing? Obviously,
here's the problem.
Okay.
Robbie Ashford's gone. There's no really ready quarterback. Like if you put in Garinair or some of these other guys, like you're just saying, I'm not going to win games. Like you're just saying, okay, we're not going to win. Like, let's just see what we have for next year. Ashford's gone. So yeah, he could throw more, but he's still going to run the same amount as last year. You just need him to be less efficient.
Do you
because
think so?
Ashford 46 carries gone.
I think they ran him last year because they knew the passing offense was a dumpster fire.
Well, they kept the offense super bland and like ran him because they think he's like a good athlete. They like him as like they like him. I don't think they like wrangle him and say, you know what, we're just going to make you a passer now. He ran for almost 5 yards. He ran for 4 yards a carry last year.
Maybe I have it wrong. Like, do you think his strengths and just remove him from a system and just analyze him as a quarterback? He's a runner?
I wouldn't say he's a runner, but he's athletic enough to run in a Hugh Freeze offense. Sure. When he was at Michigan State, he had less efficiency, right? Like he was, I think, around 2 yards a carry.
Was he? Yeah.
1.9, 2.5, and 0.7. So he's not like that type. He's not Robbie Ashford, who is just a runner. I don't know. I'm not saying you should bet over.
Yeah,
I'm just saying you should be slightly worried.
I am a little.
Because it's definitely not an over for me. I think this
Yeah.
is one of those ones where it's an avoid for me.
Okay.
What about real quick? What about shifting a little bit? Curtis Rourke. What do you think like his passing prop number should be?
I've bet it. So both the Thorn number and when I bet Rourke, that like this open on Bet Rivers can be right. So they took the route of opening everything super low to avoid people betting under on them, which didn't like it worked for the most part. But it's still like I like the Thorn number, so I bet it. But they opened Curtis Rourke at like 1950 or something. I think it's a little higher now. Like it's just like a strategically they opened low numbers so that people would have to take over positions, which is like it's smart, I think. But your question is, what should his passing prop be? Let's frame it through the lens of what should his passing prop be if he plays how many games?
I think we're in this la la land of playing all 12, right?
Okay. 2,800.
Really?
What do you think?
I think I was talking to Mike about this. I think I said like 2,400, 2,200 to 2,400.
So I'm Signetti pilled. I think that he's going to have the pass offense humming
in year one at Indiana.
Yeah.
Why does every other program stink in year one but Curt Signetti in the Big Ten with
told
Curtis
you,
Rourke, who did nothing last year?
Pilled meaning irrational.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't have a good argument other than like the guy is successful everywhere immediately. So I think it would be more surprising if he doesn't have the pass offense working.
What do you think Curtis Rourke threw for last year?
Trash, right? The offense was terrible. He was still recovering from injury.
I didn't ask you for excuses. I asked you for your 2,200.
Okay, I would have guessed even less.
He played in more games than you think. He just was obviously banged up and not the same person. The problem here is brand new offense for everybody. Big Ten. What is their schedule like this year? And they just lost like a pretty key offensive lineman, so they're already starting down a little bit. Like they have a good receiver group. I'll give you that. Yeah. They have one of the weaker Big Ten schedules. I'll give you that. They play Michigan and Ohio State, but they avoid Iowa. They avoid
it's pretty nice.
Wisconsin, Oregon, and Washington's fine to play against. And they play FIU and Western Illinois. You better get 600 yards out of him in those first to hit 2,800. You better get 600 yards in the first two games. But you better get 450 to 500 in the first two games, or you're toast.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think that'll wrap up this week's Burning the Red Shirt. Hope everybody enjoyed the banter. And I don't know, maybe someone comments in the video. Brett, tell us your number one, the latest round player you think could result in a number one fantasy output at each position. Brett, we'll talk about it on next week's show if you do give us that. All righty. Thanks, everybody.